to another video. I know it's another sit down, hooray. It's currently midnight on basically Tuesday. I just now am filming a video because I've been at Hayden's all day, hanging out with him. I had school this morning and I got home around 9 and then played a little bit of Mario Party by myself because Hayden's asleep on the Switch. So yeah, that's kind of been my day. I've been kind of procrastinating the video because I couldn't decide what to do, but now I've got a basic general idea of what I want to do, and that is kind of like the cool parts about the car scene here in Atlanta. And basically this is kind of like a follow-up to the Caffeine and Octane vlog in a way, because Caffeine and Octane has been mentioned throughout this video quite a lot, as to kind of like the big example, as well as some of the local meats. I'll be using the Boosted Mafia meat in my specific choice here, as that is the local meat of choice as well, since I'll be talking about it both on the local spectrum and on the big spectrum, the big boy spectrum, if you will, of the car scene in Atlanta. So basically, my favorite things about the car scene in Atlanta is what this video is. So one of the first things I want to bring up is the variety of cars. Now, Georgia itself is a very diverse state, to say the least. You'll run into, you know, the lifted truck guys, which is more common in the rural counties, like where I'm from. There is no telling how many lifted trucks are in the area. There's even one in our friend group, which is unintentional, in Hayden's Ranger. He got it that way, and you can't really know. We can't really tell if it's lifted or not. We think it's leveled, but anyway, off to whatever the topic was supposed to be. But you know, in Atlanta, you have, you know, your supercars and your electric car kind of groups. Your Teslas and your Lamborghinis will all be seen in that Atlanta area. Of course, you have, the muscle car guys. You know, they're out there. There's a lot of us because it is the Southern United States, and I want people to know the Southern United States is extremely patriotic and hates imports pretty much all the time. So that's not to say that there isn't a lot of import guys as well, because the Caffeine and Octane, the import scene makes up for the majority of the show. There's only like maybe 5 or 6 rows in the what they call the car club corral of muscle cars. So, you know, there's your Mustangs, your Camaros, your Challengers, your Vets. That's kind of that. Of course, there's the classic section, which you'll see a lot of old American muscle. But in terms of representation, the import guys have it beat at shows like Caffeine and Octane. And even the local meets, like again in my case, Boosted Mafia, the imports dominate the scene. So the state is very diverse. You'll run into a lot of things depending on what area you're in. If you're in the Haralson County, Paulding County area, you'll see a lot of trucks. If you're in the Douglas, Cobb, kind of Fulton County areas, you know, the big Metro Atlanta areas, you'll see a lot of imports and exotics. And if you're freaking in downtown Atlanta, you're gonna see a lot of exotics in general. My dad works in downtown, and I tell you, there's at least once or twice every couple of weeks, he'll send me a picture of a random supercar he spots. There's even been an instance where a Lamborghini was on site at his job, and he works at a construction rental company. So that was interesting, to say the least. You know, like I was saying, the state's just diverse. You'll run into a lot of cool things in different areas. Another thing I want to mention is, of course, the atmosphere. The atmosphere at most of these meets, whether it be local or huge name like Caffeine and Octane, you'll run into a very nice area when it comes to the kind of the atmosphere. You know, you'll run into a lot of kind people that are just polite every chance you get. They're supportive, no matter what you drive. For example, Caffeine and Octane and Boosted Mafia in particular. Boosted Mafia is kind of where I got my start with car meet stuff. Yeah, I show up, instead of getting the why did you decide to do a sport track out of all vehicles? It's well, that's kind of cool. Here's some tips I can say as someone who has built other cars to watch out for. I'm building this kind of deal. You know, it may not apply specifically to 4-liter engines, but it's something you might want to take into account for, kind of stuff, you know? And that's the kind of atmosphere I'm looking for. And many people are looking for car shows that you don't really find very often anymore. A lot of car shows people go to, it's just a hateful place where everyone wants to mock everyone's build. The backseat guys that don't drive want to go and critique other people's cars. There's hate in the car community. And while I'm not saying it's not there in the Atlanta scene, it definitely is not as big as people think. Caffeine and Octane, for example, I've gone to many times, as you guys have seen throughout the various vlogs that I've uploaded from the show. The atmosphere at the show is just incredible. Everyone there has a love. Everyone there wants to chat with you. Everyone there wants to just hang out and talk cars and admire what's there. And even at Boosted Mafia, a local meets in general, there's a lot of people that are just there not to start fights or not to try to race and cause drama, but to hang out and talk about cars. The next thing I want to bring up is it's usually very, very sophisticated. Not sophisticated in a sense, but professional. A lot of the car meets here in the state of Georgia are very professional. There's not a lot of insane illegal action, I guess you could say. While Caffeine and Octane does have its own instances, as seen in Caffeine and Octane Vlog 21, and even previous vlogs in the series, if you go back and watch, you'll see lots of illegalness going on. It's again much like the hate in the area. It's not to say that it's not there, but it's definitely not as big as I've seen in other states, such as a lot of videos I've seen from meets in Florida. They go rambunctious down there. They're absolutely insane. Makes me want to go, but the state of Georgia is very quiet and professional with their meets, I guess you could say. There's not a lot of action that can be considered dangerous in a sense. There's not a lot of street racing meets, where people go meet up, talk about racing, blah, 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 go race and then come back kind of deal. That's kind of just chilled out. It used to be pretty rampant when I first started going to meets, and I was quickly people tried to drag me into it. As you all know, I don't drive a very fast car, so there's no need for me to risk losing my license in a sense to go out and waste my time on it. And I've said before, I will not race anyone on the streets. And I'm waiting for the track to get my true, real racing experience. I know I've obviously been to Mexico in the past and gotten my butt smacked, but it's completely off topic there. But the meets are just really calm and collected. There's not a lot of action that can be considered dangerous. There's not a lot of donuts. There's not a lot of burnouts. Especially at meets such as Boosted Mafia, where the staff is very, very strict. And even Caffeine and Octane is relatively strict in what goes on in the parking lot. Obviously, once you leave the parking lot of Caffeine and Octane, it's free reign to the Dunwoody police, whatever you want to do. If you want to drift out of the meet, go for it. But you might have a risk of getting caught. So there's no big issues there with the Caffeine and Octane leaving. It's mainly when it comes to being in the lot for a lot of these meets, you're kind of at the will and mercy of the guys who run it. And depending on where you are, and the majority of meets in Georgia are this way, you'll get quickly thrown out if you're doing anything stupid. BM in particular, or Boosted Mafia, is how I'll refer to it a lot in this video, is BM. They take pride in this. There's not a lot of craziness that goes on because usually people who do crazy stuff don't come back. They are immediately just sent away, exiled from the meet, if you will, and they never come back. And it's a good thing because a lot of shows like BM and Caffeine and Octane are both family oriented. It's not meant to be a drunk, drug filled extravaganza either show. So it's mainly meant for people who want to bring their kids on a Friday night who got out of school and are car people and are like, oh, I want to go see some cars, Dad, and they just go to a meet. It's stuff like that. It's not, people go just to get high and do dope or whatever. And, it just makes the atmosphere, like I was saying earlier, much better than it already is from the fact that people aren't hateful at most shows. Most people aren't, at least. I don't really know how much more to go with that, really. The state is just very diverse. All the shows are diverse. The next one I can say is there are many options. Throughout the state, I'm only really familiar with the north part of the state. Southern Georgia, I don't really know a lot about when it comes to the scene down there. I'm mainly talking about Atlanta and Metro Atlanta in particular. The state, and more importantly Atlanta, or not more importantly, but more specifically Atlanta, we have a lot of shows to choose from. You've got Import Alliance, Grid Life, the Atlanta Auto Show, Nopi Nationals, which used to be here. I don't believe they still come here anymore. In the Helen Import Fest, there's There's many more I could go on about. You know, there's a lot of new startup meets, such as ATL Mobs meets coming on. I haven't been to one yet, but I've seen a lot of videos, and it looks pretty rambunctious. It completely ignores the stereotype of the other meets I have gone to, of being kind of quiet and subdued. This one is usually pretty insane to watch, and following them on Instagram, I can see a lot of their stories about kind of just how insane that meet really is. It's not quite my type of thing. I'm not very into the whole everyone do donuts get kicked out with the cops thing, mainly because I have a very insatiable fear of cops. But anyway, besides that, there's a lot of options to go with. You know, the big boy meets like Import Alliance, for example, which I also did a vlog on this year as well, was just a blast, and it's a very good show to go to if you're an import fan. I grew up an import kid, which is why I was very excited to go, despite owning a domestic vehicle. And for sure next year, the sport track I plan on bringing the track there next year. So if you want to see the truck in person and you like import cars, be sure to come check it out. I'll probably be there next year with it. If not, I'll still be at the show probably, with the guys, of course. You know, there's Grid Life, which I wanted to go to this year, but I just couldn't because of school. If you're into drifting and stuff like that, there's a lot of the stuff that goes on at Grid Life. Grid Life is literally just a giant festival for 3 days. It's Forza Horizon in real life. You know, of course, there's the Atlanta Auto Show where you can see all the previews of the new stuff. Pretty much every state and every major city has something similar of their own international auto shows. Of course, with Detroit having the biggest. You know, there used to be a World of Wheels or something like that, I think it was called. I did kind of venture into videography during this one. In the 6th grade was the last time I went, and it was primarily just a bunch of slideshows of pictures that I took from the show. So that was interesting to say the least. That was like the precursor to Roast Tires videos. But oh, there goes my TV. Turn it back on, so we have better lighting. Anyway, like I was saying, just if you're wanting to find the best shows in the state, if you want to find the best shows in the Southeast, then, you know, places like Florida and the Atlanta areas are very big ones to go to, and all that, and it's probably the best choice you can make when it comes to going to shows in the state and the southern part of the country. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to say about this topic of the Atlanta car scene and why I believe it's one of the best in the country. I've enjoyed, you know, living out here and, you know, going to all the car meets in this area. I'll probably, again, start attending more as time goes on. Start branching out to a bit further east, I guess you could say, to meets like the ATL Mob stuff. Because primarily why I haven't gone is their distance from me is like over an hour and a half. And, you know, I don't want to drive an hour and a half and then get there, because they get kicked out a lot of their places, it seems from their stories. Of getting there and get kicked out immediately. So no hate towards them at all. I really like actually watching their stories, watching the meets, because they do have a really nice cast of cars that show up usually, and it's very fun to watch their shenanigans and see what happens. I just don't want to take part in it myself at this moment. So I'll probably start branching out a bit more, though. I probably will go to Grid Life next year finally. I want to start attending more. Me and Hayden were in brief talks today about going to Cletus and Cars this weekend. We don't think it's going to happen because it's an 8-hour drive, and getting in a hotel at the last second would be just a nightmare. And of course, neither of the race cars, if you will, my truck or Hayden's car, are in any condition to race, so that's not happening unless Hayden changes his mind last minute and we can get something figured out. But there's a lot of events coming soon. I want to kind of broaden my reach to a little bit. But yeah, so that's it, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Apologies for another long sit-down video. It's just like I said, I never got to film a video today, and this is it. So thank you guys again. See you guys next video.